Another chance to return to Farscape, although sadly not every episode can be about peeing on things and Aeryn jumping up and down with her shirt open. The ugly truth does follow up in a way from the events of Out of Their Minds, though, because it features the return of Crais and Talyn. The Moya crew had been invited aboard by Crais because he wanted to discuss some things. And there's obvious tension about the whole situation there, because, as you might recall, Crais hunted them and had a rather unhealthy obsession with killing Crichton, which was finally fully addressed at the end of last season, where Crais admitted that it wasn't really about his brother, it was about his career and self-image, and he finally stopped blaming Crichton for what had happened. But as you can see, that whole thing took an emotional toll on Crichton. It's just not the kind of thing that you can pretend never happened. And the rest of the Moya crew have little reason to like Crais either. But Crais is linked with Talyn, and since he is Moya's child, making sure that Crais doesn't misuse him matters to her, and so it matters to all of them. They're all fugitives whose only protection has been each other, so while they may bicker, they are ready to go to the mat for each other because they know that the others will do the same. And what's great about Farscape is that this is all unstated. Their actions say it all, which provides the subtle counterpoint for what happens throughout the rest of this episode. Aeryn, Crichton, Dargo, Zhan, and Stark. He joined back up with them recently. He was the crazy cellmate from Scorpius Base, remember? My side, your side, my side, your side. That guy. They come aboard unarmed, and Crais has Talyn's feed for this room cut off, his interface removed, and turns on the manual override. So, nobody's a threat and they can talk reasonably. Well, as reasonably as they can, given the history of mutual loathing between them. While they're talking, Chiana and Rigel can only watch in boredom until a Plocavian ship shows up, and Talyn blows it up. Now remember, manual override was on, so the only way it could fire is if somebody over there did so. But who? We don't know. Crais and Talyn starburst away, and a second ship picks them up before they can get back to Moya, and put them on a holding tin while waiting for questioning for this attack. The concept is an old one, best seen in the classic Kurosawa film Rashomon, notable for two things. The first Japanese fight scene that's based on the Three Stooges, and an event being described by different people in contrary ways. It can be due to missing or exaggerating details, deliberate half-truths made for self-serving reasons, subconscious misinterpretations, or just out-and-out lying. So after some badgering by the Plocavians, Aeryn tells her version. Crais wants their help in removing Talyn's cannon so that he can trade it for a non-lethal dampening net, because Talyn's become rather unstable, and unstable plus having a gun built into you is a bad combination. But Stark is aghast and explains to Zhan that the Plocavians build dangerous weapons, and Dargo and Crichton think working with Crais is a bad idea. But Aeryn wants to at least hear Crais out. Now anything she says could be a deliberate lie to try to protect them all, but even with that, it is the peek into how she sees the others. Dargo is short-tempered and unreasonable. Zhan has crawled so far up her own ass that she has to meditate before she does anything. And Crichton, whatever her complicated feelings towards him, while he has a few helps when it comes to pointing out obvious things, his massive ignorance of the galaxy and personal hatred for Crais make him also potentially unreliable to her. As a former peacekeeper, Aeryn's life is the perspective of the soldier. Crichton takes charge because he knows people. Yet he also lacks the qualities that she sees necessary in a leader. And as for the rest, they are either deficient in discipline or decisiveness. So that leaves Aeryn as the one island of sanity in all of this, with the will to take action, but the discerning to know what action to take. This also might show why their relationship is complicated, her and Crichton, because, like her peacekeeper lover in The Way We Weren't, Crichton has many admirable leadership qualities. And because she betrayed that man, and because of Crichton's obvious flaws in that capacity, at least as far as she's concerned, he's an emotional complication to her, and might even explain in part her perspective. Those flaws are being exaggerated. After the Plocavians arrive, Stark calmly prepares to activate the defense screen just as a precaution, but Aeryn stops him to avoid any kind of provocation. Because we don't want this to end in disaster. According to her, this was just a malfunction. Talyn was offline and no one activated the control, so this was just a stupid accident. Oh, speaking of which...
Sooner or later, one of us is going to have to find a bathroom. really wish I hadn't said that.
Farscape, always ready to combine a mystery, character analysis, and bathroom humor. I love you so damn much. Zhan goes next, and in this version, it's Stark who is ignorant of the Placavians.
Placavians?
Oh, I've heard of them. Quite far advanced technologically. Strong believers in truth and justice.
And far, far too clever to bother trying to trick through shallow flattery. Backing up Aeryn's story about an accident are repeated references to malfunctions that also need to be repaired. In Zhan's version, she's the insightful one, while Crichton looks like he's 3 steps behind everybody else and has to be walked through the obvious. And Stark is all, oh yes, obviously rationality is the way forward. And even Crais is visibly pained at Crichton for his unwillingness to forgive his past crimes and move on. Her silence in all of this is only because she's just carefully observing everything to ensure that she catches all of the nuances of it. And Dargo? Well, sure, he's confrontational, but he's a Lux, and he just can't help it. What happened was an accident as far as she's concerned, just like Aeryn said, and Crais only left because he was terrified that they wouldn't believe him. I wonder if this is what it feels like to go to the gynecologist for the first time. Stark is next up, and being kept in a peacekeeper cell subjected to the Aurora chair has not endeared them to him. His story is brief. They were all mistrustful of Crais, and in the end, he fired the cannon in cold blood. The Placavians point out this is completely at odds with Aeryn and Zhan's stories, but he says, look, they're just protecting Talyn. Well, either way, they don't much care for the discrepancy and threaten them all with execution. During this, Dargo's been chomping at the bit. Remember that he swore he was never going to be chained up again, so being in a prison cell of any kind would make him climb the walls. You know, if there were any. So he punches Stark so hard that he knocks his mask off.
Away from me! My mask! Give me my mask!
Crichton sums up my reaction.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, I guess the physical body is their link to this reality, but Stark's people are actually energy, I think. Dargo is the next one up, and after what happened, you don't expect him to be nice to Stark in his testimony, but he says he's going to tell the truth, which means one of two things. Either it's an assurance to them that he's going to put aside his feelings and say what really happened, or that he's not going to follow in their pussyfooting around and say what really happened. In his version, Stark definitely knew who the Placavians were and ranted about how evil their weapons are.
Novatron gas, seismic disruptors. They're felling savages who deal in death.
Savages. That was the word he used.
And then he said something about how you couldn't make your wife climax even if you wrapped your business in firecrackers first. In Dargo's version, he made the case that what Crais really wants is even deadlier weapons. And everyone... Well, I think the framing of this scene kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? That just screams, I'm Dargo, big damn hero! Zhan is his sidekick, of course, and while Stark is rambling about how the weapons of the Placavians enslaved his people, Zhan is still sticking with Dargo's break Crais neck plan. When they arrive, the scans show the ship is carrying gas that eats you alive from the inside out, and Stark is so horrified, he fires the cannon. Like with Aeryn, their comments are likely reflecting their own biases. Zhan is lying to protect Stark. She's the only one who pretends that he was completely ignorant of the Placavians. She's probably in love with him, and so is either covering up his reactions or simply refuses to see his eccentricities. And in Dargo, well, he's a brute, but he just can't help being what he is. And Crichton is just a well-meaning but ultimately foolish man. He's certainly in touch with his emotions, which is good, but he's got a little bit too much inability to control them. He's a little bit too flighty and not reined in enough by common sense. Remember that in her version, Crichton was prepared to activate a control while in no way implying that Stark was anywhere near them. So it's not like she's covering for Crichton saying this, because she was perfectly willing to say he went over by the controls, but not willing to say that Stark did. And for Aeryn, well, she's just straight lines. This, thus that. This is necessary, therefore we will do it. No thought or discussion, no time spent on considering possibilities. Now Dargo, he sees Zhan as the only one willing to see it like it is and do what is necessary. If a situation calls for force, and let's be honest, Dargo feels lots of situations call for it, Zhan can be relied upon. But while Aeryn is a warrior and he respects her prowess, she is far too close to Crais for his liking. and Zhan is far too willing to just gloss over reality in the name of her spirituality. In other words, what we're seeing is that as much as these people have each other's backs, it's not exactly based upon an atmosphere of mutual respect as people, so much as a mutual respect for their ability to deliver when the situation demands it. They may not necessarily have each other's respect, but they at least have each other's trust. Well, within reason, it's probably a good thing that Chiana and Rigel are over on Moya. Although I should probably discuss what Chiana's been up to during all this. Moya's been searching for Talyn, but it's needle in a haystack, really. So Chiana goes out of her way to try to convince Pilot to change Moya's mind, to head back and try to help the others. Now remember, these are people who are known for trading horrifying weapons, and Chiana is saying to fly towards them on purpose, with no reason other than loyalty to them. We're seeing that, however much she is inclined to flee dangerous situations and look out for number one, sometimes she can put that aside and live up to their trust. Well, Crichton is last, and he's stuck with trying to sort out all the other crap. In Aeryn's version, she stopped Stark from firing. In Zhan's version, she stopped Crichton from firing. And Dargo says that Stark actually fired. So what's most likely is Aeryn stopped Stark, Dargo didn't see him fire but assumed that he did since he was moving towards it and the gun went off, and Zhan lied to protect Stark. Of course he keeps that last one to himself, although explaining around that proves a little difficult. They come over and start ranting and... I'm not exactly going to cut around these people, but I am not going to actually seek out a shot to show these uggos. Bleh. So Crichton tells his version. Oh, nice little trick, by the way. He calls them the Plakavoids. It's typical of Crichton improvising alien names that he doesn't know. So throughout the scene, all of the characters acting out the part use the name Plakavoids instead of their real name. It also subtly but definitely establishes that what we are seeing is Crichton's version of it, and so not necessarily the truth either, despite what he had said to them. Although admittedly, it is a lot more balanced. Stark shows appropriate horror at what the Plakavoids have done, but he doesn't get manic. And Dargo is distrustful and probably would like to break Crais' neck, but he's not stomping around either. In his version, Stark tried to hit the weapons, but Crichton switched off the panel so that even when he hit it, it wouldn't actually do anything. So it really was just a malfunction. But in the end, they'll just execute them all. So Stark steps up and confesses so that the rest will be spared. He'd been preparing for the possibility and said there's a very, very, very slim chance that his being sort of here and sort of not really here might mean that he could survive dispersal. Although that didn't look good, though. Dargo's opinion of Stark has changed as a result of his confession, although he and Zhan both believed that he really had fired. But what Crichton left out of his testimony was that by turning off the console, he switched Talyn back on. In reality, it was Talyn who had fired the whole time, having learned what was aboard that ship and trying to protect Moya. Stark, Crichton, and Aeryn weren't protecting Stark, they were protecting Talyn. Talyn may be a bit unhinged, but he's part of the family too. The Ugly Truth gets a stamp of recommended. While it is a rare return for Talyn and Crais, it's not absolutely necessary for the overall plot, although it will provide a bit of info to lead into our upcoming big Farscape project, Liars, Guns, and Money. On its own, it's an enjoyable trip through the minds of each of the characters, and is like a counterpoint to Out of Their Minds, in that was the actors' interpretations of each other's characters. Now it's the characters' interpretations of each other's characters. And man, I suppose kudos are in order to the Ensign people or whoever is responsible. These are the first aliens who make me sick just to look at them.
I think he wants to equip Talyn with even deadlier weapons.
You know what I think? I think you are right.
Not at all.